Welcome to the review of Hillsfar, created by Westwood Studios and published by SSI in 1989. Hillsfar is an unusual game. It combines some role-playing aspects with some real-time action aspects. The main menu is the place where you begin, and of course you need to generate a character. You can only have one character at a time, which is kind of unfortunate. But here we're choosing a multi-class elf. It follows the same rules as the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition. You choose alignment, which doesn't seem to have any impact in the game. And of course you can re-roll until you get the character you want. And then you simply give it a name. From this point you can save your character and the game is ready to begin. You can also transfer characters from two of the other gold box games, Pool of Radiance and Curse of the Azure Bonds. When you're ready to begin, you simply say Ride Current Character. Then you're presented with a colorful overhead view, and then the action begins. You start by having to jump over obstacles riding a horse, and the graphics are actually pretty bad for 1989 especially. You notice the background doesn't even change. Those trees stay stationary. And yes, that was a puddle we just jumped over. This is what happens if you don't jump over the puddles. And another strange thing is, why is there hay in the middle of the road? There's no way a wagon could even be on this road. Look at all these obstacles. I mean, come on, this is pretty lame. Another hazard in the action adventure is arrows are shot at you at random times. Of course, you never see the shooter. The way you get around that is you have to duck. But as you could see, I had no chance in ducking there as I was already jumping. You have to go through this tedious horse riding process anytime you travel in between places. Once you arrive at a destination, you can enter. And this is the only other place that has an overhead map. This is Hillsfar, the main town. Your character is represented by the flashing yellow arrow. You can move around and enter buildings, in which you're presented with another view, which is an overhead view, but it's at a much lower level. And basically now you just run around trying to find treasure chests and trying to open them. If you're a thief or have hired a thief, you can use a lock-picking process and try to figure out the puzzles in order to get the tumblers to go down and unlock the chest. Sometimes your picks will break through this process, and sometimes you'll set off a trap. You can hit the spacebar to flip the pick so that you can choose the other side of it. And you can also force a chest open with physical strength. It can be dangerous to try it in this manner, as you can set off a trap. In which case you can actually die. And yes, that's the death screen. There's also sleeping traps, where you fall asleep on the floor for, yes, about 3 seconds. Yeah, pretty lame. You can also use a knock ring if you have one, which automatically opens the chest. It uses up the knock ring when you do this. You can also try to pick the lock with a small object. A pretty silly policy in the game is if you try to force open a lock and then you can't and you try to leave, it won't even let you leave. Sometimes you'll find advice inside a treasure chest, which is kind of odd. Other times you find empty treasure chests. Sometimes you spend time unlocking a treasure chest only to find that it's empty. Other times you can find floor traps that get revealed, and you can see them as these little shapes on the ground that look like diamonds. You can find magic items such as knock rings or potions of healing, which incidentally you can use at pretty much any time to recover hit points. Even on the overhead map in Hillsfar, you can find a Rod of Blasting, which allows you to destroy objects in the path of the tedious horse riding. I found the graphics was always being repeated. You always see this blue carpeted room and you see people standing all around. And even in the sewers, it's pretty silly. I mean, why would all these people and treasure chests be in the sewer? It just doesn't make sense. If you step on a teleport trap, it'll send you elsewhere on the map. And eventually, it's time to find an exit because the guards come after you. You can find stun scrolls which actually stun the guards and keep them in place. But sometimes you end up in a situation such as this where the guard's blocking the only exit. You're told when the exit's found, and then you have to wander around until you can find the stairway. That's how you get away with your gold and goodies that you find. The weird thing is, even if the time runs out, you're not captured unless one of the guards touches you before you make it to the exit, as you can see there. There's also secret doors you can find, and it's always in the upper left of the building, which is pretty lame again. The good thing about the secret rooms is there's no time limit. But there's people in here. Again, why would people be in a secret room? There's an archery range in the game that allows you to practice and make a little money and even fulfill some quests. Here we're going to say yes, we want to practice, and we'll choose arrows as our weapon. The weapon choice is limited based on your character's class. Basically, you move the scope to a target you want to hit, and you push the button to fire the arrow. It kind of alternates and moves around based on the type of weapon and your dexterity. The more dexterity you have, the more it stays in place. So after you shoot 10 times, you're told how you place versus the other people that completed. Here we got second place and we won 40 gold pieces. There's text toward the middle of the screen which tells you how you're doing. You actually get taunted if you miss quite a bit. Cheer up, you can't get any worse. Here I shot this rat and look what it says. I'm a meat and potatoes man. Have any potatoes? Okay. Didn't quite get that joke. There's also pubs in the game, and there's all kinds of options of things you can do in there, especially if you're a multi-class character. You can order meals. You can listen to tavern gossip, which most of the time is useless, but it also can be kind of entertaining. You hear some gossip that you think is interesting, unfortunately is in a foreign language. Nice. You can speak to the barmaid. You can gamble. If you're a thief, you can try to pick pockets. Here I found an old box of snuff. Sometimes you get lucky and you get some gold out of the deal. You can have drinking contests, which I didn't do too well. There's arm wrestling contests, which I did pretty well at that. You can try to pick the cellar door, which I never did successfully. If you're a mage, you can sleep everyone, which incidentally, that's the only time in the game where you can cast spells. If you're a mage or a cleric, your spells are useless in this game. You can charm the barmaid, which basically just makes her give you some information for free. Climbing on the walls just gets you in trouble. You can also do mischievous things such as carve your initials or perform an illusion. And if you really want to get in trouble, you can try to start a fire. If you get caught, you get thrown in the arena, and then you fight to the death. You're the character on the bottom, incidentally. If you are successful at burning down the tavern, you put it out of commission. You try to visit it again, it tells you it's being rebuilt. There's also a bookstore in the game, and I didn't find anything useful in there. In fact, it won't even really allow you to read a book. As soon as you try, the shop owner comes up and tells you to quit reading it. If you talk to the owner, you get the usual canned, cheesy advice. There's a bank in the game where you can deposit money. And I'm assuming that's in case you get robbed, you'll be able to get it back. There's a healer where you can either buy healing potions or healing spells. The spells is very expensive, 500 gold pieces, but basically it heals you completely. The healing potions are nice because you can take them with you and use them later. Also, you can try to sell healing potions, and each time the price changes. And it's very strange. There's random encounters where a mage will come up and ask if you want to see a magic trick. This time we got a pile of gold. Another time we got teleported right into the arena. There's also a woman that appears randomly trying to sell magic items such as knock rings. Sometimes you'll also be visited by random people that want to sell you information. She looks pretty hot. I guess I'll pay her the gold and see what she has to tell me. The arena is in the northwest part of Hillsfar. Okay, that wasn't worth it. There's also a magic shop in the game where, you guessed it, you can buy knock rings. The game's pathetic with its variety of magic items. You can also sell a knock ring or talk to the mage and get the typical useless advice. There's also guilds in the game in which you can complete quests and rest. You can only enter a game based on the class that you are, so multi-class characters can visit multiple guilds. Resting actually heals hit points. There's a castle in the center of the map, but you can never enter it. And, ironically, there's also a jail, which is always locked. You can never get into the jail. I always thought jails were so you couldn't get out. And, of course, you can visit the arena in order to fight and earn a little gold, or to complete a quest. As I mentioned earlier, you're on the bottom, and your opponent's on the top. If you're defeated, by voluntary choice, you don't die. You just get kicked out. So once you go back to the overhead map here, you choose a trail, and you simply do the tedious horse riding. Sometimes you'll run across hidden trails, and you're automatically forced to take it. You don't even get a choice. Once you reach the end of the secret trail, you're asked if you want to enter that particular place. Here it's Big Tree. And surprise, surprise, it looks just like the other things, only the terrain has changed a tiny bit. What about the hermit's place? Oh wow, look at that, imagine. And I thought a hermit lived by themselves. Well, anyway, there's a trading post where you can trade your horse, or you can buy a new horse if you lose yours. If you trade your horse, you get to choose what type, based on a name. The different horses have different attributes, like some run faster, some will just jump sporadically, some take more stumbles before they run away. Here's an example of hitting one too many stumbles, so your horse runs away. And so you can either walk ahead, look for a new horse, or wait for passers-by. Here we tried to look for a horse and we've been captured by forest bandits. So they beat you up, steal half your gold, and then you make it to your destination. You can't die when getting roughed up by the bandits. You always have at least one hit point left. Sometimes they'll steal half your potions and knock rings. And sometimes you manage to sneak by bandits and never get attacked. Sometimes you get lucky and a passerby will pick you up and take you to your destination. As I mentioned earlier, at the guild, you're allowed to do quests in which you earn gold and experience. In this case, the first part of the quest was to place well at the archery range. And then the next part of our quest was to go prove yourself within the arena. So we first have to beat Lefty, the left-handed orc. And then next up is The Red Minotaur. Nobody knows his name. Once you take him out, you're told to go back to the guild to go to the next part of the quest. Now you're kind of on a scavenger hunt. We have to find some valuable documentation that was hidden in the cemetery. So we do that. We find it inside this treasure chest. And we're sent over to the jail. After we break into the jail, we find the evidence we need inside another treasure chest. Can you see that there's no shortage of tedium in this game? So finally, once you return the information that he asked for, you're given quite a bit of gold and some experience. Incidentally, you can't level up in this game, so experience is useless unless you're going to transfer your character from this game to another game, such as Curse of the Azure Bonds. And of course, if you're a mage, you go to the Mage Guild. And if you're a rogue, you go to the Rogue Guild. And so on. The only good thing about the Rogue Guild is you can also buy some lockpicks if you break yours. So in closing, I'd just like to say this has got to be one of the worst games I've ever played as far as a DOS game. It's so tedious, the graphics and the gameplay. There's no replay value in this whatsoever just because it's so boring. And if you are trying to make more powerful characters to transfer, there's much better ways to do it. I mean, you can just play Pool of Radiance or Curse of the Azure Bonds and do some grinding. That's much more fun than playing this tedious game. Incidentally, Westwood Studios also made BattleTech. If you haven't checked out my review of that game, go check it out as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.